Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast, a show for accountants using technology to make their jobs more strategic and impactful. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
So David, how was your week?
Pretty good. I don't think I did anything, but I was watching you on social though. I think you did something this week, right? You traveled very far.
Yeah, I traveled very far to downtown LA, which it's not a trip that you make unless you have a good reason to go there from the San Fernando Valley. I was with Flowcast at the Accounting and Finance Show LA, which was at the Convention Center downtown on Wednesday and Thursday.
So they moved that show then? Because I think before it was always at the Hilton at the airport.
Yes, used to be at the Hilton at the airport, this time at the Convention Center. Interesting event. I've never been to a conference where everything was all in one room. So all of the keynotes, all of the breakout sessions were all in small areas within the expo hall, in the different corners of the expo hall. And so during the keynote, it was fine because only one person was speaking. But during the breakout sessions, it got pretty noisy because you had people competing, basically, to be heard. What I did like about it was that there was tons of traffic, people going to meet with the vendors, see the booths, because you had to do that in order to get from one place to another. And it was kind of nice, too, because you could go and peek in on a session and just listen for a little bit. But if you didn't want the CPE or you weren't really that interested, you could just walk away. So I like the informal nature of it. I like that a lot.
Did you speak at all? Or did you just work at the Flowcast booth and like...
No booth duty for me. I was speaking I spoke at in the afternoon on the first day, and we talked about best practices for the month-end close, our favorite topic at Flowcast. And it was great. We got grouped up. It was originally a 30-minute presentation, and because of the CPE requirements, we combined forces with a consultant named Chris Doxey over on the East Coast. And so she shared her best practices about process from her amazing career with big companies and mid-sized companies. So it ended up being really great.
Oh, it sounds awesome. Yeah, and it's interesting because I know that show is in a transition year, right? I think it's moved from one owner to a new owner. And I think that was the same with the New York City one as well. So from a branding perspective, I think they're coming on strong. I've definitely noticed like every photo always has that same background, the
blue background.
Is it called Accounting Technology NYC or Accounting Technology LA? Is that
Accounting and Finance Show LA, Accounting and Finance Show NY?
That's it. Okay.
It's free. We forgot to mention the most important part is that the whole model is that anyone can go for free. It's free CPE. And I think that having everything all in one room is what makes that possible, right? Because it's probably very affordable to put it together. So I like it. This is part of a trend where CPE tends to be going toward free, it seems like.
Maybe that'll be a whole nother topic one of these days. So in the meantime, while you're going to conferences, I feel like tons of stuff happened this week. Like last week was short and sweet. We knocked out 3 news stories like nothing. I feel like there's just a lot of stories that happened this week. So if you want, we can jump in.
Let's do it.
First one, I guess we'll jump in. NetSuite had an outage this week. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, and we have a ton of customers on NetSuite, so we were very, very aware of that. Over 7 hours, all day for some folks.
So how does this affect even like your app? Like your app can't communicate to NetSuite through the APIs?
I'm not sure if it affected the API, but definitely if you're on Flowcast and you're using NetSuite, you really can't do anything without having your ERP. It's hard to do reconciliations and whatnot. The thing this is just one of those things that's inevitable when you're in the cloud, and we just have to accept it as a reality. Ideally, it wouldn't be a whole day, but you're going to have unexpected downtime. My feeling is that it's worth it anyway, even if that happens. The problem with these outages is that sometimes the response by the company isn't the best, and the customers are left in the dark. And unfortunately, NetSuite didn't communicate on social media about what was going on or what was happening. They didn't even acknowledge that there was an outage until they had fixed it at like 7 or 8 p.m. Pacific time. So there were people on Twitter complaining about this, getting upset, and I'd be upset too if I didn't know anything, right? It actually reminds me of when the power went out here in LA and LADWP wasn't telling people when it was going to come back on.
Yeah, and I think that's a learning curve, right? Like I remember we had a really bad summer. It might have been 2012, maybe even 2011. Just a bad set of circumstances. We lost the data center in San Diego. So we actually had like a a mistake was made in the data center, right? Something got shut off. And then literally 2 weeks later, a car crashed in some power inverter in San Diego and knocked the data center out again. And I don't think we were really, as a company, Intuit was really good at communicating outages, right?
Yeah.
But you're right, it's a learning curve where you have to be open and transparent and explain, hey, here's what's happened. Things are down. You're not crazy. Something is not working. Yep. And we're working on to get it fixed and build that confidence back up. Plus it helped with it forced us to become multi-redundancy. And like obviously we talked about last week, which is last week's news, right? Which is, number of things were moved to Amazon, et cetera.
Yep. Well, and I think this is a lesson for not just developers of software, but it's a common sense for anyone. If you're a CPA in private practice, or I should say public practice, and you go on vacation, you want to make sure that you let everyone know that you're not going to be responding to their emails immediately, right? Or if you're all day at a conference, put up that away message. Just be in communication when you're not available or you're not able to get work done. It makes people a lot more comfortable. Definitely don't. There was kind of a funny thing that happened on their Twitter, which is that the same day that they had the outage, the NetSuite team, maybe they had like pre-scheduled this tweet. They tweeted out a story about called 4 Common Causes of a Sluggish E-commerce Website, saying, your site is sluggish, but what's slowing it down? Here are some common triggers. And to do that on the same day that you're having an outage, some of the replies to that were kind of both frustrating and funny in retrospect.
Yeah, and I think that's the lesson to be learned of pre-scheduled social media tweets. They very quickly can be out of context. Some major event in the world happens, and you look like a fool.
Yeah, turn those off when something happens. So enough about outages. Let's talk about some fun news in the cloud accounting world.
I don't have anything fun this week, so hopefully you do.
You don't have anything fun this week?
No, actually, they're none of them. None of them. Actually, there's one thing that's impressive, but nothing's fun.
Well, okay, let's go to impressive then.
Okay, something that was kind of impressive this week, Google announced, so everybody knows about security and phishing, and we've talked about different security breaches that have happened in the past on this show right before, but Google, the last 18 months or so, have been using hardware-based YubiKeys for their employees. And they have not had one of their 85,000 employees have not been phished. Their password has not been phished since they started using these hardware-based keys. And I thought that was just really, really, really kind of an amazing thing that, not all the Google employees, nobody got successfully phished.
So for those who aren't familiar, what is a YubiKey?
So a YubiKey, coincidentally, if people want, we'll put the link in. I happen to have somebody, a YubiKey. We did YubiKeys 101 on the Developer Hangout earlier today, about 2 hours ago. So I'll get the link to you so we can stick that in for the YouTube video. But essentially, it's a next level of hardware authentication. So if you think a site with just a username and password is a low level of authentication. Then if you want to have a site where you sign in and then it sends you the text, that two-factor authentication, this is kind of like another third level of authentication where you have to have a physical key. So like I said earlier today, I kind of used the analogy, like it won't stop your corrupt uncle who's in your house from possibly getting hold of your key and signing into a website, but it'll stop people 5,000 miles away on the other side of the planet from getting in because they don't have this physical. It's a physical key you put on your keychain, and
it plugs into your USB drive.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, that's true. I forgot how it actually touches your computer.
Yeah, you don't turn it in a lock. It's basically looks like a little USB drive, and you plug it in, and it allows you to log into those websites. And the thing that I was on the Hangout this morning, the stat that astounded me was that 81% of security breaches occur because of weak or compromised passwords. And multifactor almost completely mitigates that problem. I mean, you still need to be using strong passwords, don't get me wrong, but if you have a weak password, a hacker cannot get in just by guessing your password. They also have to have that key that you physically possess. I
mean, that's what happened with Podesta, right? And the whole Hillary Clinton emails, and all that stuff. He got phished.
Yep.
It's world and history changing getting phished. So that's why I say it's amazing. The fact that nobody was successfully phished is pretty testament to this next layer of security that, and the reason I reached out, before I even saw this news, I was already reaching out to YubiKey because I know we've talked about the Deloitte stuff, and Deloitte's forcing people to have a two-factor authentication on any apps that work with any companies that work with Deloitte, right? And or they're making them use their Active Directory type stuff or SAML. But like my opinion is like, oh, for accountants and small businesses, like this is next. Like you're going to have to start getting to this next layer of security to protect yourselves. And then just coincidentally, I had this thing hang out on the Friday and then the story broke this week, which is really amazing.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, the big takeaway is if you are managing an accounting team, make sure that your team is using multi-factor authentication to log into all of your business critical applications, email, your ERP, all that good stuff. You can do it with a key, a physical device like a YubiKey, or you can also do it with an authenticator app. So there are different apps you can have your team download on their phone, like Google Authenticator, LastPass Authenticator, 1Password has one. And what that app does is it generates a random code that's synced up with your login. And so in order to log in, you need your password and you need the code that is currently displayed on your phone. So the phone becomes the key, right? So the takeaway, use multi-factor. Do not expose yourself to this huge risk of security breaches.
Yeah. And I think even two-factor with the texting is always nothing is perfect, right? Somebody could always try to break in. So no second factor is not great, but if you have second factor, that's great. But then if you can do a hardware key or you said an authenticator app, that's another layer, right? And so it's something to think about. It's like especially for accountants, right? And bookkeepers and people that are probably listening to the show, you're not protecting your Spotify account here. Like this is, you have your client's data and you have to take this extra level of security seriously. Yep,
definitely.
I don't know. Let's hold off on your fun thing because let's just move on to another article, which is completely security related. So the ComplyRight, I think many people may have used them for their W-2s and 1099 processing. They, one of the products I think that's a little bit they're more in market brand is eFileForBiz.com. I think a lot of people are familiar with that as their brand. I know they're on all the app marketplaces. They're on apps.com. So they're an app that integrates with software, but they apparently were compromised and had a breach. And so that's an article that we'll get in there. Obviously, there's a lot of analysis here, but I don't know how much we can't speak to it because I'm definitely not an expert on that level of what the breach is. But I think it's a perfect example of, somebody somewhere probably did not have the right level of passwords on their stuff.
Yeah, I'm not totally familiar with what the issue was here. It sounds like they had their website got compromised. And so that the information that companies or accountants were entering into this website with social security numbers, addresses, amounts for 1099 processing, those got hacked, right? So their database, it doesn't matter that their database was secure, it's the website interface was not secure. I think that the lesson here is that it's important to carefully select and choose your vendors and make sure that they have some sort of security audit going on, that they're using the latest methods of protecting their website and their application, because in this case, it's a lot of critical information, social security numbers, addresses that people can use to file fraudulent tax returns or steal your identity. If you don't already have a credit lock on your account, chances are most people in this country at this point have had their social security number stolen. It's kind of crazy that this has happened, but there have been so many security breaches recently. It's likely that you, the listener, you have your social security number out there somewhere. So I personally, after one of the latest data breaches, I went and I put my credit files on freeze at all of the major credit bureaus. So I have to opt in to unfreeze it so that I can, get a loan or whatnot. Two perks to that, or two benefits to that. First of all, it's harder for me to actually go open a line of credit because I have to do something. So I'm less likely to go just open random cards, which is good. The second is that somebody who has my information, even if they have it, they can't go open up a credit card. They can't go buy something and get credit using my information.
There might be another implication here for accountants and bookkeepers, because I think what happened is ComplyRight started informing people of the breach, but nobody knew who the hell ComplyRight was, right? If my accountant or bookkeeper filed my 1099 with ComplyRight, I don't know. I have no clue. So if I get a letter from ComplyRight, stating that there was a breach and my data was exposed, my first question is, who are you and why'd you have my data? There might have to be I think maybe accountants and bookkeepers might have to start thinking about a policy of really disclosing when you are using these other apps, who might have their data, because people did. I think I saw people didn't know who this company was when they started getting notified of the breach.
Right. Yeah. So that's the complexity, is that somebody, your accountant, your controller, a company that you work for as a contractor, used ComplyRight to file your 1099 or send you your 1099. You have no connection to ComplyRight, but your data has been breached and they have notified you, and you have no idea why you're getting notified now. I'm curious if any of the accountants who have used ComplyRight could face potential liability.
So far, it's been very quiet in our space. I think I saw one Facebook post about this. I'm actually surprised about, because
maybe it's just a sign that it's gotten so common, right? We've accepted that security breaches happen and nobody cares anymore. I guess we should probably just title this episode the security episode, right? Because it's been about
complacency wins.
Yeah, it's been about security breaches and websites going down. So all the ways that the cloud can fail you today on the Cloud Accounting Podcast.
Yeah. So I think there's I don't know if you want me to keep going or if you want to jump into your fun art thing. I'm just so depressed now. I think I'm just going to go and maybe start my weekend early. All right. So here's something else that's down. Like, let's just continue on. Let's keep going down. So everybody knows Hector Garcia. If you don't know who Hector Garcia, I'd bet money that you've probably watched one of his QuickBooks YouTube videos. They've had 3.3 million views, 500 plus YouTube videos. Apparently this morning, his whole channel just got taken off of YouTube. No warning, no nothing.
Wait, like you go to the channel, it's not there?
Yeah, like this channel does not exist.
Wow.
So since 2012, I think he posted his first YouTube video. He does 2 to 3 a week. Like, it's some of it's his business model. He uses those YouTube videos in a way to get new clients for his accounting firm. But not only that, tons of other accountants that are out there use his videos, like to send to a client. Like, how do you handle a bounce check in QuickBooks? Hector has a video on that, and they might send that to their client to handle the bounce check in QuickBooks correctly. And so this is a huge ripple effect, I think, in our space. Beyond the fact that, like, okay, they just pull somebody down for no reason, but the fact that who they pull down and the volume of those videos and how many people use those as a resource is a huge ripple effect and impact.
And let's be clear here. Hector is saying that they did not give him a reason for this.
No phone call, no warning, no indication that this was going to happen. It just got pulled down. Apparently it was a breach community guidelines, or I forget the term he used.
It was some sort of generic, they gave him some sort of generic notice about breaching community guidelines, but they didn't say exactly what it was. And he can't actually get somebody on the phone. So he had to fill out a form, and it looks like it's going to take him 2 to 4 weeks if they'll even get him back online. So this is, I think this brings up a great point, and tie this back to all the stuff going on with Facebook right now. With these tech monopolies that are starting to develop, really they already exist. How can we protect ourselves when so much of our business is all in these platforms? And if they go down, then we're done. And so Hector's business, he might be out of business forever if they don't put him back on YouTube. I mean, would he go build all those YouTube videos up again? Probably not. Same thing with the NetSuite outage. Like, we got to figure out, if we're going to leverage the power of the cloud, how do we protect ourselves?
Well, yeah, I think there's that redundancy thing. I think I saw even somebody got hacked on Instagram. I think it was a friend of the wife's, and she made a really drastic post about it, like how, it's the end of the world. And I think there's got to be a perspective on this types of things, right? Like Hector, this is his business, and all his eggs are in one basket to some extent, right? And now these got taken down, and that's got to be crazy scary. Yeah. But then other things that maybe aren't as important, but even still, people are putting all their eggs in one basket. So then if something happens, like, that's it. Yeah. And you're right, they're all in these cloud companies, they're all in these things, even our email, right? And things like that. But people can spin up their own email servers. You can spin up your own website to put your photos on. Well, so, like, you don't have to depend on these platforms.
Here's an idea as a way that, like, without doing a lot of work, because that's spinning up your own email server, man, that's a lot of work, right? So just here's an idea. If you want to sort of create some redundancy in your cloud, you could, every time you get an email that has important information that you're going to save, like, forward that to another service, right? Forward that into Evernote. That's what I do. So I have all my critical emails in Evernote with information that I really need. Another example is if you're uploading videos to YouTube and you don't want to be stuck with YouTube and dependent on them, is also upload them to Vimeo or another site or your own site. Save them somewhere accessible where if you get banned for some reason, you have another option.
Well, I think even with this podcast, I think I have it automatically gets saved to Dropbox as we're recording it, but then I copy them to my OneDrive as well, and then you upload them to the internet, right?
Yeah,
and then you have copies. So it's, you definitely want some sort of redundancy, especially for something that's super mission critical.
Well, and another great example is if you're a CPA or a CFO and you're on your own, you're a consultant, got your own firm, don't rely on channels like LinkedIn and Facebook for all of your marketing. Have your own website where you own the domain and you own the hosting, so that that's not going to go down, right? That's the place where you put everything and you syndicate it out onto social media, onto these big tech companies that could arbitrarily ban you for any reason. And that way, it still hurts if you get taken down from Facebook for whatever reason, some arbitrary reason, but you've got your own website still there. And that's the primary place where you direct people.
So just to summarize, you're saying create your own content, host your own content, keep your content under your control, and then propagate it out to these other sites. So if one of these sites has a hiccup, they go out of business, they don't exist anymore, your content still exists, and you just have it also existing on 7 other places.
Yes. And I would say that in terms of accounting software, like ERP software, QuickBooks, whatever, is make it part of your month-end close process where you are exporting your key data every month into a format that you can back up and save and have accessible in case you need it, at least on a yearly basis, which is what I do. So I export my general ledger for my own personal accounting and tax information into Google Drive every year, right? And that way, if I lose my account, I'm good.
That's an interesting strategy. And I remember back in the tech support days with QuickBooks for Windows, this is going way back, for me, before you were born, Blake, maybe, I don't know. And I remember that we would tell that to customers, get yourself a notebook, right? And at the end of every month, you make a backup to their 3.5-inch floppies, you put them in that notebook, you print out your profit loss, you print out your balance sheet, right? And you put that in there for that month. And then you do the same next month. So you have always this aged backup. So if worst case scenario things happen, you keep that notebook somewhere else, right? So there's a fire, some worst case scenario, at least you could go back 30 days. And if those disks are bad or something went wrong, you go back to 30 days before that, right? And so, but you're doing that same model, you're just doing it in a more modern way.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? We've been backing up forever, right? Ever since the invention of the personal computer, people have advised that you back up your data off your hard drive onto some other media. And we were doing it on floppies, we were doing it on rewritable CDs. And then we got in the cloud and suddenly people thought, oh, we don't need to back up anymore. Not true. You definitely need to have an emergency backup, and you need to figure out when it's good to do that, have redundant systems, right? Let's say your online store goes out, you're on Shopify or something, and it goes out. Do you have a way that you could still fill orders if you had to for a day or two? What if your point of sale goes down in your store? Do you have an emergency way to charge customers? Have a backup credit card terminal, right? If you are not using Square, let's say you're using some other merchant service, have a Square, one of those things you plug into your phone so that you could charge customers in the event of an emergency.
Yeah, that's a good point, I think, is how do you, not having all your eggs again in one basket, right? You might have to have a backup merchant service account, right? Or, hey, or at least think about it. And this is an opportunity, I guess, for you accountants out there, right? Have you worked with your clients on a disaster recovery type situation plan?
Yeah.
Right? If their retail and their point of sale goes down, or they can't do, their internet goes down, how do they make money? How do they charge customers? They don't want to just put a sign up that's closed. So yeah, this is a good exercise I think accountants could do with their clients for sure.
It's a great consulting opportunity. Definitely come up with some sort of service offering around that. And if you're not in public accounting, let's say you're in corporate, this exercise still applies to you, right? You need to make sure that your systems are redundant in some capacity. So actually, that's one of the benefits of cloud storage that I recommend to people if using Box or Dropbox, for instance, is that you can sync those files to your local hard drive. So if if those services go out for a day or two, you still can work on the local files, and then they sync back when it comes back online. We just had that question at the show, and I think that's a great benefit.
Yeah, I definitely sync my stuff to my local hard drive. 100%. Everything's in both spots for sure. So I do have another article, but I think I want to, so we can actually have enough time to talk about it correctly, and I'll just preview it for next week. But there's an interesting article from Accounting Today about a career path is longer for women in accounting. And I want for us to take definite time to talk about it properly, not rush through it. So let's hold that one off until next week. And if you want to jump out, and you said you finally have something fun, like, let's just do yours now. Like, I'm done being the Debbie Downer here this week.
I actually forgot what that was. So this was all security. This was all the challenges of the cloud, but how you can protect yourself. Let's leave it at that this week.
You promised me this fun thing, and that's it? You're just leaving the listeners hanging?
I blame you, David. It's your fault. You did too much serious stuff this week.
Well, I guess people will have to subscribe so they don't miss next week. If anybody wants to get a hold of us, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Tweet at me. I'm at Blake T. Oliver, or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, or you can tweet at me. I'm at David Leary. Please subscribe so you don't miss next week, because obviously Blake is going to find this missing link that's so fun that he promised us a half hour ago that we'd have, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, everyone. Look forward to talking to you again, David, next week.
Awesome. Later, Blake. Bye, everybody.
Bye.